Welcome to the Inside Slant Podcast, brought to you by JayhawkSlant.com. Here's the staff from Jayhawk Slant, the online leader in KU coverage since 1999.
Hey everybody, this is Randy Withers. Welcome into another edition of the Inside Slant Podcast from JayhawkSlant.com. We have a lot to cover here with you today. We're going to talk some Kansas Jayhawks basketball, some KU football, recruiting, the transfer portal. We're basically going to get you up to date on everything Kansas Jayhawks right now. Before we get into that, actually, you know what? Let's just get right into that. Let me bring in our man on the Kansas basketball beat, our man from the Allen Fieldhouse suite, Mr. Shea Wildeboer. Shea, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. I survived the blizzard that never came. The government owes me a lot of grocery money for that because I stocked up because I had Kemper with me. No, man, but I'm good. Everything's starting to melt. I'd like the weather to be a little bit warmer, but a huge basketball game coming up this weekend, and I'm ready to go.
I am so excited for that game. I'm
Right.
looking forward to being able to watch that one. With College Game Day there, the environment is just going to be absolutely electric.
Wild, for sure.
Speaking of electric, let's bring in our man on the Kansas football beat, the publisher of Jayhawk Slant, my good buddy John Kirby. John, how are you today?
Doing well. I don't know if I'm electric right now, but
How are you feeling?
oh, it's just a lot of rehab, man. A lot of rehab. It's not. Yeah, I'll tell you this. I don't know that anybody ever told me that it was pretty rough go. I mean, it's the rehab and the road back from this thing is no joke.
For people that may not know, real quickly, what was the injury that you had and what was the repair?
Well, yeah. So I mean, I've had my meniscus done twice, right, over the last 15 years, and then it just eroded finally. What was interesting, Randy, is they got in, and they say about 5 to 7% of the people that need knee replacement qualify for a partial knee replacement. So they got in and they opened my knee up and they said, "Hey, the middle of my knee looks great. The outside looks great. All my ligaments, tendons, everything looks great except for the medial bone." So that's what they replaced. And I guess it's a much more complex surgery than a full knee replacement because a full knee replacement, they say you just go cut, and put a new knee in. Whereas a partial, you've got to work around all of the existing good
Uh-huh.
stuff that stays. So it was interesting. The guy that did my surgery was phenomenal, and he said there's a lot of doctors that won't do orthopedic surgeons that won't do the partial knee surgery because it is more intricate. But anyways, I
hmm
got that done, and I'm 3 weeks in, and I mean they say it's a 6 to 8 week deal before you start getting back to where you feel anywhere near normal. So
hmm
yeah, the PT, I do it about 2, 3 times a day. It's pretty strenuous. But yeah, hey, listen, but hey, enough about me. I want to bring up, I do want to mention this. When we've had our message board going for what, 26 years. Okay.
Which
And
is crazy to say, but yes,
and
continue.
you get a lot of guys that have been, a lot of guys have been on our site 5, 10, 15, 25
hmm
years.
Yep.
And so Webby had put a post up, Big Dog Jack, one of our longtime
Yeah.
football guys, and he's not doing well. And it sounds like things are getting to that point where
Mm.
he may not be with us at some point. So I wanted to bring that up because these guys, we all kind of become buddies and family sitting there
Yeah.
talking about on the message boards. But I did want to mention that, and I hope prayers out to him and his family.
I want to echo that. He has been for many years. I mean, I've never had the chance to meet him, obviously, or communicate with him outside of the boards, but I've always enjoyed reading his posts, and he just seems like, he's one of the many great Jayhawk fans that are a part of our family. But yeah, he is Big Dog Jack. I hope you know that people care about you and that we're thinking of you and everybody's pulling for you, and we're
The older we get, the harder it is to say goodbye to people. That's what I've learned. The older I get, I mean, it's tough, man. And like when I lose people in my life, I get emotional these days. I mean, it's hard. I mean, we've all go through a routine, and we get to know these guys, and when it's over, I mean, it stings. So I'm sending my prayers to he and his family, and nothing but love and respect, and hope it takes a turn for the better.
Shay, you talk about getting into just a routine and a flow. This team, as we kind of shift gears and get into talking basketball and looking ahead to this matchup on Saturday with BYU, Bill Self's squad appears to have found a bit of a groove over the last couple weeks, and that includes a stint, obviously, without him, the trip to Colorado when Jock Vaughn had to take over while Coach Self was in the hospital. Despite that, they've made a move up in the rankings and a move up in the conference standings. What have you seen over the last several games that has gotten them playing well? I mean, what's been the change in this team?
Well, I love Coach's decision to put Melvin Council on the ball.
Hmm.
You
Agreed.
know, slide Darren over. And Darren's going to get his no matter what. No,
Yep.
he's going to score 25, 30 points a game, no matter where he's at on the court. I think letting Melvin Council put the ball in his hands, facilitate the offense, and run things has just taken some pressure off Darren, and has also just created so many opportunities for other guys. Um, Let me say this, you guys. I'm not a big rah guy. I'm not a big hoo ha guy. I love Melvin Council. I
Hmm.
love everything about him. Aside from his game, I think he and Trey White have cemented themselves as not only true players on this team, but guys that are willing to lead, guys that are willing to talk, guys that are willing to make the plays. And they're not just talking; they're doing it. You saw Melvin against K-State hit some big shots. You saw Trey have a big game. Yeah, I just
You
think
saw Melvin endear himself to Kansas fans
I
forever.
wasn't going to say it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and at the end of that, if you go back and look, if you kind of look at Coach Self when he turns to the right to see what Melvin's doing, he's got that smile on his face,
Oh
and I
yeah.
and I think that's what this team has done too. I think it's brought in, um, not necessarily love, but it's I think maybe it sparks Coach Self again to say, hey, there are guys out there that want it. These guys are going to be all gone in a year. Coach Self said it, in a year these guys are going to be gone, and Coach Self is going to be the one to hear it from. Oh, you lost to K-State. Oh, you do. These guys are going to be gone, and he's the one that's going to have to hear it and be stuck with it. So the fact that these guys have um, done what they've done in such a short period of time. I love it. I love this team. I think, nothing against the last 2 years. Those guys were preseason number one, struggled on the road, would get blown out at times, and it was just kind of a frustrating 2 year run. And this year it's been the complete opposite. These guys play with pride. They play for the name on the front of the jersey. They've bought in, and nobody is, hey, what about me? What about me? What about me? There's enough to go around if they do things the right way, and they're doing that. And to me, though, the biggest thing is putting Melvin on the ball and letting him go. And if you guys remember early on, there were games where he necessarily wouldn't finish around the rim, or he'd come up short, or like he's finishing, he's making plays, and he's been a huge surprise to me. And I just think everybody's kind of caught that fever, and they're rolling right now.
Shay, I wanted to ask you, do you feel like this squad has, you talk about kind of the movement of players and putting Melvin on the ball. Do you feel like this team has established a system of what it's going to play like with Darren Peterson, but also without him, which we know has been a regular occurrence this season? Do you think they're now getting comfortable with being able to handle both situations without as much trouble maybe as they did earlier in the year?
Absolutely. I love the mentality. If you guys have noticed recently, the last couple of weeks, there's been a 7-man rotation. And the message for this group is clear. It's next man up. And I think that's something they've taken seriously. Listen, you cannot replace a Darren Peterson. You just can't.
No.
The guy's averaging 22 and a half points a game. He's just, somebody asked me on the board yesterday, and I never answered it, who I would take first, AJ DeBancer or Darren Peterson if I had the number one pick.
Good question.
And this isn't a homer pick at all. This is just me following Darren the last 2 years, and to me, it would be no doubt Darren simply because of his work ethic. You guys, I don't listen. I don't know how class works at Lawrence. I guess maybe all you can go online or maybe some in person, but he strikes me as a guy. And this isn't being negative, but does everything as quickly as he can for class just to get in the gym. He's all ball all the time. I've talked to his old coach at Prolific Prep, and that's all he's focused on. I mean, if you're an engineer, a doctor, or whatever, and you can get to that profession as quickly as you can and be that good at something, then you get there, and that's how he is. I mean, I don't know if he's a guy that you see at parties. I don't know if he's a guy that you see out. I can't imagine that he does a lot of social stuff. And I can say this too, I don't think he dislikes us when I say us media. I just
Hmm.
I just think anything that takes away from what he's doing is a distraction, and he doesn't want anything to do with it. So there's no
He's
doubt.
just about ball.
Well, that's it. I mean, and some people might not like that. Some people might not understand it and whatnot. But that's who he is. Like when Saturday comes around, you guys, I expect him to be as good as any game we've seen this season. I think he went 2-0 last year against AJ. He beat the Boozer twins twice. Every top guy he went up against, he just dominates. And so I think that's just who he is. So yeah, I think they have found ways. I do. I think again, I think the emergence of Melvin. I think when you got a guy like El Marco, McDonald's All-American, coming off the bench and being okay with that, not being like,
Mhm.
"God, why am I not?" You don't have a bunch of selfish guys on this team. You have guys that are willing to make sacrifices and willing to do whatever it takes to win. And you see that. And the cool thing about it for me, Randy, is they're having fun. The last 20 seconds of that K-State game, KU's up, 22? Melvin's still defending hard at half court. Gets the steal, passes it to Trey White, who to Coach Self's not liking, dunks it. I mean, they talked about last year about how they saw the court stormings. I mean, that they've got
Mhm.
a group text they're in, and so yeah, I just think that they're doing whatever it takes, finding ways to win, and it's just kind of the next man up mentality.
I know we're doing the podcast on the day of Bill Self's press conference, but you know, let's make the assumption Darren Peterson's going to be good to go Saturday afternoon. What do you think of this matchup with BYU featuring two of the top freshmen in the country and maybe two of the best that we've seen in several years?
I love it. I can't wait. I know they went head to head twice last year. Um, at the high school ranks, Darren scored over 100 points in 2 games, won both matchups. But here's the thing to me, and I think Coach Self said it yesterday. I think it's the great point. It's not Darren versus AJ. It's Kansas versus BYU. Now Darren and AJ are going to be at the forefront of this matchup, obviously. But I
Mhm.
think it's going to be the guys around them that make plays. Guys around them that understand that it's Kansas versus BYU and not one guy versus one guy. So
Well, those guys are going to get theirs. You've talked about
absolutely.
that in the past.
And I think it's going to be also important for both, but particularly Darren because it is at home, not to force things, not to try to get out and make a 50-point play. Just play your game. And that's
Mhm.
more than good enough. Continue to get guys involved. Continue to make plays for your teammates. And if he does that, and Trey White has been just phenomenal. I can't say enough about him. Melvin Council's been great. The last game, Bryson Tiller got off to a really good start. And if Flory is going to play the way that Flory does, he's a tough matchup. And I know it's kind of a love-hate relationship maybe with Kansas and him because sometimes he doesn't play maybe as well as people want him to. But there's no doubt about it. When he's on, he's a difference maker. So yeah, I just think that the team, um, both have superstars. Obviously, you can go 1-2, 1-2, or whatever you want to do. But I think it's the team around them that's going to make the biggest difference. And I think if KU takes care of business, that tomorrow will be another good day.
So you talk about tomorrow, well,
Saturday,
Saturday. We
Saturday.
talk
I'm
about
sorry.
Saturday. Let's look even further into the future. Get us caught up on the latest that you're following on the recruiting trail, whether it's this class or what's going on in next year's class, and as we kind of look ahead to what next year's roster could potentially even look
That
like.
big, big, big Saturday. Obviously, fans don't know Paul Pierce is coming back. The truth will be in the building.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Yeah, yeah. Truth is coming back, but you've got the number one ranked player, Tyron Stokes, coming. Unofficially, that means they got to pay for it. Second visit. You got Tay Kenny coming, who's really good friends with Tyron Stokes, and you got Javon Bardwell. So yeah, listen, all for me, all eyes will be on Saturday. I know we're getting close to not necessarily real close, but spring's coming. Guys gonna need to start making decisions, and all eyes for me will be on Tyron Stokes. He'll be in the building. I've said for a long time that I thought KU was in great position. I know Joe Tipton has said the same. You add a guy with him, with Tay Kenny, the number one point guard, you're looking really good next year. So if that's one you can wrap up, I know early on everybody thought it would be Kentucky because of Nike, but there's the thing that I've learned about Tyron is Tyron's going to do what Tyron wants to do. There's a way out of all those other things, and it's just a matter of sitting down and getting it done. So that's what I'll be watching this weekend, just to kind of see how he interacts with the guys, his emotions, how he expresses himself, and yeah, I mean, Paul Pierce, the legend. I mean, we'll be back. You don't think that they're going to cross paths and some other guys? So yeah, it's a huge weekend in Lawrence for sure, basketball wise and on the recruiting front.
I got to watch Paul play in the field house my freshman year at KU. I got to watch him and Rafe obviously together on a team that was just absolutely loaded. And
Right.
it's funny. I was just thinking about that earlier this morning. watching those two and kind of thinking about Darren Peterson and who does he compare to? Who does he remind me of? That kind of thing. And to hear that he's going to be back this weekend, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I
it's good.
hope I hope the
Listen,
crowd
guys,
goes absolutely berserk for
I saw
Paul.
they started camping out at 6 a.m. It'll be as wild and live as Allen Field's has been in a long time, and I can't wait. So big weekend coming up.
That's our man Shea Wildeboer on the men's basketball beat. Shea, thanks for joining us
All right,
today.
guys, have a good weekend. Thank you.
Now we're going to switch gears and bring in my man John Kirby to talk some Kansas Jayhawks football. JK, the transfer portal season was an absolute blur. I still don't know everything that has happened. I've thought about how to address this, and I feel like it's a perfect time to put you on the spot, as you know I love to do. So we're gonna fire up the lightning round. You ready to get this thing rolling? Because I'm gonna go, as you know, John. I hear you laughing because you're like, oh God, here we go. We're gonna go every position. I want you to tell me something about a portal player or a portal move about each one of these positions. Do you feel up to this today?
Hang with me a second. See, most of the time I do this I just rip this stuff off the top of my head. But if we're gonna
Uh-huh.
go position by position, lightning round, hold on here. I got to get my spreadsheet up because I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. I got 31 guys to know, so I just want to make sure that I include.
You got
All
some
right.
extra espresso for this thing?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, I'm ready. I'm ready. I just didn't. I wasn't prepared for the lightning round, so let's go. I'm ready.
All right, we're gonna start where it always starts. Let's talk about the quarterback position.
Yeah, they signed one quarterback, Chase Jenkins from Rice. He's a dual threat guy. He started every game last year at Rice. Interesting was like a receiver the year before, but he was a successful high school quarterback at a good program in Texas. So, he was a guy that, Kansas was not going to take a quarterback. And I think that changed when Andy Kotelnicki came on because I mean Lance Leipold even said in one of his last press conferences, we're not taking a quarterback. So obviously that changed and it'll be an interesting quarterback competition.
Let's talk about the running back position, Kirby. What do we got in ball carriers that are going to potentially be behind the new quarterback?
Yeah, I like the group that they did here. I just wrote this morning on Yasin Willis from Syracuse. He led them in rushing. Their offensive line was just okay. And some of
Hmm.
his best games this year came against Tennessee, Clemson, Miami, Georgia Tech. So he's a pretty good back. I mean, he's a guy that'll help a lot. Dylan Edwards. I'm a lot of people listening to this are going to be familiar with Dylan Edwards.
They
Was
might
a
have heard that name before.
well, Gatorade Player of the Year at Derby, went to Colorado, then Kansas State. Listen, he was highly recruited. Kansas was on him. And,
Hmm.
Dylan Edwards' game, he gives KU a dimension to use in the slot and the backfield, the run to return game that
That's
they
where
pro
I'm interested as a
yeah,
return game.
I mean, they probably don't have somebody like him right now. And then what's crazy is that those are the two guys everybody talks about. People forget the first guy to commit to KU was Jalen Dupree, who led Colorado State in rushing, and the guy that he was competing for at Colorado State, they were kind of number one and number two. He signed at Oklahoma. So I
Uh-huh.
mean, so I mean, this Jalen Dupree's a good back too. So they really helped themselves there.
I really like the Debris signing, and I agree with you. I think he's the one that it maybe got lost in the shuffle because he was first. He's going to be a player for sure. Let's talk wide receivers, John. Who we got out there to run routes and catch the ball?
Yeah, Nick McMillan from Buffalo. It was interesting when I talked to him. He said when he was a sophomore in high school, that's when Lance Leipold and his staff were leaving to go to KU. They offered him as a
Oh, wow.
sophomore. So I mean, he was all conference in two good things. He was all conference as a player, and he was academic all conference in the MAC. He set some
Hmm.
receiving records at Buffalo, the most 100-yard consecutive receiving games in their school history. He's a guy he'll factor in. And then they got Nazee Cox from Middle Tennessee. I think he had around 500 yards receiving. So that they were looking for two receivers, and those are their guys.
Expanding on the receiver position, going right next door, tight end.
Yeah, Carter Moses from Albany. He came down to, he had a lot of schools that were on him. He visited Baylor, visited KU. Honestly, I thought he was going to go to Baylor. Then he kind of came
I
out of
remember you
nowhere.
saying that.
Yeah, he came out of nowhere and picked the Jayhawks, and then Jalen Butler from Old Dominion. An athletic tight end. Not a lot of film, not a lot of info out there on him, but those are their two tight ends.
Offensive line.
Yeah, I'll start with Cason Carpenter from Oklahoma State. He played behind a guy this year who signed at Wisconsin from the portal. That kid was hurt his last game, and Carpenter started against Iowa State and scored. Played 60 snaps, scored 70 on the Pro Football Focus grade card. So, I mean, he had a good showing, played in like 7 or 8 games this year. Before Oklahoma State, he started at Tulsa, started every game as a freshman at center. So they needed a center. I think he'll be a solid player. Trezell Jenkins, his dad, obviously, we've talked about this, was the number 1 pick of the Chiefs. He's a D2 type guy, and I think, he's somebody that can develop. He's got a good frame on him. Connor Stroh from Texas. He started 5 games last year at guard. I think he'll compete for the starting job. And then Nick Morrow, probably one of the more interesting guys in just where he's going to fit, because he started 20 games at tackle for Cal. I mean, he's a monster. He's like 6'8", 320. So it'll be interesting what they do with him. I mean, is he a left tackle where he played a lot there? Is he going to be a left tackle at KU? What do they do with Calvin Clemens? Where does Nick Morrow compete? So 4 offensive linemen. And again, I think they did a good job there.
Okay, let's go to the other side of the ball, start up front. Defensive end.
Yeah, David, the only defensive end was David Santiago from Michigan State. He was their PFF, had him as the highest rated defensive end at Michigan State this year. I think he would have been a starter. I talked to some people at Michigan State, and they said the coaches did not want him to leave, but he's at KU and will help out.
Defensive line in general, then.
Yeah, the inside guys. The first guy to commit was Jibriel Conde, who's a D2 player. Had a bunch of offers. He committed to Wisconsin and then came into his visit to Kansas and liked it and decommitted and signed with KU. Kevin Otis from Arkansas. He's a guy maybe needs to develop another year, but I think he'll get on the field some. I mean, this guy had Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, Auburn out of high school 2 years ago. I mean, his offer list was as impressive as anybody on the roster. Probably maybe one of the signing that got more talk in our recruiting network and with people was Trayvon McAlpine from Tulane. He's an all-conference player. KU wasn't messing around here, because I've heard behind the scenes that there were a lot of schools throwing out some money to him, and he took 1 visit and signed with KU. And this kid could have taken visits anywhere. I mean, there were a lot of schools on him. I talked to his agent. His agent said his phone was ringing when he went in the portal. And then another player from the same conference, Eamon Smalls, another 6'3", 305 guy, all conference player. So again, I think defensive line, especially on the interior, solid position again.
Linebacker, then.
Yeah, I just wrote about Davion Bam Crouch from Boston College yesterday. In 2024, he had 77 tackles. He was voted a team captain in 2025. He played in his first 4 games. He got hurt. Now he's healthy. He signed. He'll be a big addition to the linebacker room. Jabril Alameen from Marshall had about 60 tackles. Guy brings some speed. I know he started his career at Jacksonville State with Rich Rodriguez, who's now at West Virginia. I know that staff at West Virginia did everything they could to get him there. So Jerron Willis from South Carolina, Quincy Davis from New Mexico State. They got Landon Watson from Kentucky. He's kind of a big physical backer, like 240, and they say he can also come up and play some edge. So that 5 linebackers there, those guys will all definitely factor in on the depth chart.
Let's step back into the secondary and talk about the safeties.
Yeah, probably the one guy that jumps out to me was Corey Gordon from Louisville. He started there, had quite a few offers. Jaden Harris, they got him from Georgia. Didn't have as many snaps at Georgia as he thought he would. But the year before that, he played 600 snaps, started at Miami as a safety. So, I mean, listen, I know his PFF score was like 58, but when you're starting in Miami, okay, you're decent, right?
You're a dude, yeah.
I mean, if you're starting playing 600 snaps in Miami, you're okay. And then they got Christian Pickett, another guy from the ACC from Georgia Tech.
Cornerback position. We'll finish up there.
Yeah, Roman Pearson from Ball State. He came down to KU and UCLA. He had a visit to UCLA after his KU visit, and I know his agent was telling me he was definitely going to take that visit, but he ended up committing and signing with KU after the visit and canceled the UCLA trip. Kaijon Cummings Coleman from Iowa State. I think he's an interesting guy because he won the starting job at Iowa State and he started the first two games, then played backup the next three games, got injured. He signed, and then Elijah Cannon, athletic guy from Mississippi State. So that rounds out the corners with three of them. Hey, I do want to bring this, Randy. I want to make sure that we don't forget special teams because I do think that they did a pretty good job here. They got Martin Connington from Michigan State. He was their starting kicker. And then they got Reno Monteforte, long snapper who started at Cal and Notre Dame. So, I mean, listen, when you start at Cal and Notre Dame as a long snapper, I mean, you're solid. And then, KU, like everybody, is going to Australia for their punters. I think they've gotten the last three were all Aussies. And so they got Matthew Gill, who just got on campus last week.
That's some great stuff right there. And the way that you cover the transfer portal, Kirby, is fantastic. You do a hell of a job, especially for a guy that's post surgery right now and just trying to get back on his feet. Overall, because I know you've had some time, give me your thoughts on how this staff did in the portal, and you were just talking about special teams. What are some of the other positions that you really like?
Yeah, I would probably say if I had to pick a few, linebacker. I think getting five guys, they needed to go out and get them. Obviously, retaining Trey Lathan was huge, but I think there's some guys that can come in there and play next to Lathan. I don't know exactly what defense they're always going to be in, so they've got some different guys that can probably align in different spots. The D line, and I'll throw Santiago from Michigan State, although he's a D end in there. I really think they helped their D line with some of the guys they signed. The running backs, I think all three of those guys are going to see the field this year. And I think maybe offensive line. I'll choose offensive line. I think with Morrow and Stroh and Carpenter, there's three possible starters, guys that'll definitely play snaps for sure. So I think the offensive line added some guys there.
Something I've been wanting to ask you is how does this staff handle 30 transfer portal players coming onto campus and starting up in January, along with 11 new kids coming in from the high school ranks? I mean, that seems like a lot to juggle, but also, I mean, that's, in the old days, you might have a few mid-year JUCO transfers, maybe a few high school kids that enrolled early, but I mean, that's 41 guys. How do they manage that?
Yeah, no, hey, that's a great question. It's definitely a challenge, but I'll tell you what I think, Randy, is everybody's starting to figure it out, right? I mean, because there's a lot of schools now that are bringing in between 20 and 40 new guys every spring based on who they lose in the portal. I mean, you look last year, I think KU brought in 25 or 27 new players at the break for spring football. So I think the one thing is KU's been through it. Now there's more guys this year than last year. So Gildersleeve has actually, he's seen it. So he's developed a system. I think spring is probably more of a challenge on the coaches. I mean, you gotta put nameplates right on the helmet so every coach knows who's who. Because
No doubt.
when you got 40 something new guys in spring football, you're still learning who they are because these coaches have never coached them. So, yeah, no, it's a great question. But I think as time goes on, these guys are all starting to figure it out because, this system isn't changing.
One of the hot topics on the board, and it's no surprise, which it's going to sound crazy to say this. We're just 5 weeks away from spring football starting up. You talked about bringing in Chase Jenkins at quarterback. How do you see the position battle starting this spring between him and the incumbents, guys like Isaiah Marshall, that people have been really excited to see take the field?
Yeah, obviously, it's one of the hottest topics on the message board, and this is definitely going to be a competition. And I've said that. And you've got Andy Kotelnicki's back, okay, and you've got Zabrowski, who's going to be able to give a lot of intel on what he saw from Ballard and Marshall last fall camp and through the season. So, but this is going to be a competition, and with Kotelnicki back, we're going to have to see what the offense looks like. He's going to be one that's in there making a decision on the quarterbacks. I mean, it'll be interesting with Zabrowski, Kotelnicki. You got Lance Leipold will still have a say in it. So this is going to be interesting. We haven't had, I don't know the last time we've talked about a quarterback battle at Kansas. I mean, it's been several
long
years,
time.
so it'll be interesting to watch. And this spring, you only get 15 practices. So, I mean, each quarterback's going to have to get in there and get reps with the number one unit, the number twos. They're going to have to take notes, see how they fit. This thing's going to go through the summer and into fall camp. Okay, there is no way they're going to know who the starting quarterback is until they can start getting, an idea of how these kids come out of summer workouts and then start to go through fall camp. I could see Lance Leipold maybe naming the starting quarterback 2 weeks before the first game, which is common with a lot of teams in quarterback battles.
Oh, yeah.
It'll definitely be one of the most interesting things to watch.
That will do it for another edition of the Inside Slant podcast from JayhawkSlant.com. We have gotten you primed and ready for a big weekend of Kansas Jayhawks basketball ahead of the matchup on Saturday afternoon with BYU. We talked a little football, some recruiting, basketball, got everything you need. For my man Shea Wildeboer, my buddy John Kirby, I'm Randy Withers. You've been listening to the Inside Slant podcast from JayhawkSlant.com. We will talk with you again soon. Rock chalk.
This has been a podcast from JayhawkSlant.com.